Hello, on today's video we've got a DNT. Now I know a lot of you will say a DNT stands for do not touch, but I'm hoping that with this one being one of the later models that they released, with some of the little bugs ironed out, that will be okay. This is the DNT B40 FM. It's a standard 40 channel UK FM CB that came out in the early 1980s. Now the difference that this one has got against the M40 is the fact that it's got, as you'll see when I turn it around, a mains power supply built in, which is unusual. It does make it very, very heavy, though it is an absolute lump. There's a few things that I do like about it though, and one of those things is these little flip up legs that you got on the bottom of the case. Really nice little feature, that, and enable you to angle it and sit it down on the bench thus. I'll just turn that up, you'll see there. So that gives you that particular elevation, which I do like, and saves you jacking it up on a screwdriver, doesn't it? So what we're going to do first, these have a built-in power supply, and I've ordered some new capacitors for the power supply, which I shall fit later on in the week. But I thought I would start to do some work on it, particularly just run it through some tests out of the box to see what it does. It didn't come supplied with a microphone, but at least it did come supplied with a power lead, which they often don't, do they? So what I'll do, well, first off, I'm interested in seeing how much this weighs. I'm going to weigh it. I'm going to put it on the scales for you. As you can see there, it's a significant 2.2 kilograms in weight, and that's a fairly hefty beast. Let's compare that to a comparable size rig without the built-in supply. And here we've got like a Chiser or just a great standard radio, GR8, and that's 1.4 kilograms. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy there, isn't there? That's quite a lot of extra heft. So bear that in mind, particularly you know, if your shelf brackets aren't too strong. Always worth checking the plug when you get any mains connected equipment in. It does have a 3 amp fuse in, and it's got the shrouded pins there. So this one's good to go, and it's also worth checking the cable as well, just to make sure it hasn't got any nicks or cuts in it, and replacing that if necessary. But this one looks okay. Okay, we've got the President Randy sat there. 1, 2. So we've got receive, and we'll just try transmit with the Randy. Turn a bit of volume up on this, a little bit quiet. 1, 2. Not sure I'm hearing anything there. Let's just turn it up a bit more. And the squelch up. 1, 2. Yeah, a little bit quiet there on receive. Now I've noticed in other videos that the capacitors in these aren't the best quality, so I am going to go through a few and just test them when we get the lid off, and we'll replace them as necessary. So in low power it's doing what it should do, 0.4 of a watt. We'll switch it into high power and just change our meter up to the other scale, and it's doing about 3.5 watts there. And looking good. So we'll check the receive. Right, it's doing 0.87 microvolts for 12 decibel cyanide. But receive sounds to me good. That sounds really good, and you notice how stable the needle is there. When we drop it down as well, getting a very nice even white noise, not too crackly or splattery. And I like the way that the needle is nice and steady. So receive is going to be quite decent on this. I mean, we're all the way down now to 0.23. You notice how fine the white noise is. That's the first radio I've ever heard that on. Just a fine hiss, rather than the sort of the bouncing around and crackly noise you get. So that's interesting. That's something, you know, worth noting, I think. Back up to our 0.89 there microvolts. And there we go, 2779137. I would suspect this may have been tweaked, because normally they don't go up in frequency, they go down. So I suspect this may well have been tweaked at some point in its life in the last 40 odd years. So yeah, that ain't going to need much to bring that in. 1, 2. Okay, so deviation is a little bit low, a bit sketchy. Like I say, I think we might have a problem with 1 or 2 capacitors on this radio. Right, there's the underside of the case here, and the speaker, and we have this little recessed area here, which is obviously to allow heat dissipation from the amplifier, from the power supply. And here we go. Here's our speaker connectors and our main board. Now I can start to see now why it's got such nice clean receive. We've got a filtered crystal filter in receive there, and then we also have a filter section within this can here. So I think those combined are the reason for the nice quiet receive that we've got there. No crackling or popping or jumping around. So yeah, I think this, I mean, it might not be the most attractive looking set for some of you, but I have a suspicion it might work quite well. And if you have limited space and you know limited shelf space and things like that, and you haven't, or you're running out of capacity with your existing supply, the fact that it's got one built in there is rather a good thing. Now, like I said before, the D&Ts were blessed with a little bit of a bad reputation, but I think largely and on the whole it's not well deserved, and with a little bit of care and attention a lot of these things can be put right. Now I suspect some of these capacitors are probably going to need changing within the main board, and I've ordered the capacitors for the power supply, so I'm not going to attempt to do those until I get them, but nonetheless I think we'll go through with the tune-up of the set and see if I can improve it, and I think we're going to probably look at recapping the whole thing. Definitely think we're going to need to do some recapping. Can you see this capacitor here with its plastic sheath at the top there withdrawn, and for receive on this we're going to set that with a marker oscillator. We've got this, you might have seen it on the bench there. Okay, and the next thing we need to do is to adjust the reference crystal here for 10.24 meg, and we do that by monitoring pin 3 on the MC1451 chip and adjusting that via the scope. Okay, there's our signal, and can you see there on the right in the bottom left 10.2397, so we're almost there. We'll just bring it up onto frequency with this trimmer pot. Imagine this might be quite sensitive. So as near as makes no difference. There you go, 10.24, spot on. Right, I don't need to adjust the VCO. VCO seems to be set correctly. If you do need to, that's the transmit locking VCO adjustment, and then that's the receive locking VCO adjustment. And what you do is you monitor pin 8 on the chip there, and you're looking for it to go into lock, basically. So you're looking for 7 to 8 volts high there. So adjust that until it drops on receive. Adjust on receive, adjust this one until you'll hear the relay clicking in and out whilst you're doing that, until you get it to lock on receive. Then get the midpoint, so adjust it to where it falls off, bring it to back the other side to where it falls off, and then get it to the midpoint and check it on all your channels. Then set the radio into transmit and do the same with the transmit VCO lock. Monitor that pin and then check it on all channels. Now if you haven't got a DVM, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you can simply on the transmit one obviously just check for the relay going in to lock on all 40 channels. So I thought I'd show you that. I don't need to adjust it on this, but I thought I'd show you. But what I do need to adjust now is using a marker oscillator, is to adjust the receive frequency. Now what we do for that, as I said earlier, I was going to do it at 455, but I'm going to do it at 10.695, and I've set the inexpensive frequency generator to 10.695 on the scope, so I know it's absolutely spot on. And when I turn this on, you'll hear a tone. Okay, and just to explain what that is, how I've got this set up, we're still feeding we're on channel 20, and we're still feeding an RF signal in at 1 microvolt from the RF signal generator, but with no tone. So we switch the tone off. And then what we're doing with the cheaper Chinese generator is all we're simply doing, you can see we've just got the 2 leads laid in the set there. All we're doing is producing a sine wave at 10.695 as a marker oscillator to null the receive, to get it on, to basically get it to reject the signal either side of it. So and when it's nulled, it's essentially centered. So what we do, we're on that little trimmer pot there, so we'll just turn the volume up again, and you'll hear me adjust it either way. You hear the tone, and we can adjust that either way. You can go really high or really low, and what we're doing is looking to nullify it. Okay, bring it down to 0, and we can go the other side of that 0 point and it'll come back up, but you don't want that. You want to nullify it, so we'll just, you want to be right in the middle of that. So there you go, that's nullified the tone. So that's how you adjust using the marker oscillator. You can do that fairly inexpensively. These K-Moon 6900s, they've gone up a little bit, but you can get them second hand for roughly £50, and really useful to use as a marker oscillator tool. So I think the next thing to do is just to go through the transmit lineup. We do need to do to adjust the frequency, so we'll do that next. Okay, so the transmit frequency adjustment is that trimmer there. As you can remember off the video, it was slightly high, so we'll bring that down. I'll just quickly do that off camera and then show you the results on the meter. There we go, 27,79126 toggling 125. Spot on. Right, we're not far off 4 watts here, about 3.9, but we'll peak the transmit lineup. At the end of the video I will show you a photograph with all the markers on it, so you know exactly where all these adjustment points are when you need to do it yourself. Right, I did have to actually adjust that on the spectrum analyzer as well, because we were getting a fairly strong harmonic, so it did take a bit of fiddling around to get it just within spec. These had been all peaked for maximum power. We are doing 4 watts and we are under on our 54 meg. There is a 54 meg trap. I didn't touch that. I just adjusted it up for the lowest harmonic. We certainly don't want to be putting any power out on where we shouldn't be. And let's just check that transmit power now. There we go, just a shade over 4, and that's absolutely fine. And we'll just check that on 40, channel 40. Exactly the same. Channel 1, exactly the same. So that's nicely balanced. Put that back to channel 20, and then we'll just adjust the low power. And that's doing bang on 0.4 now, so there's no need to adjust that. And you'll see the adjustment for low power, which I'll show you. You'll see at the end of the video when I put the photograph, the marked up photograph up. Right, so just the transmit power needle. It's that potentiometer there. And that's for the receive, so you're doing the receive that one, transmit this one. I think it's pretty much spot on, but we'll just get it spot on. There's transmit. We're looking for middle of the strawberry patch, so take it right the way up to the top. There we go, roughly about there. Remember, this meter is relative to your SWR of your antenna as well, so when into a dummy load you can set it like that, but if you've got a poor SWR, when you key up, it will be reflected on your meter, so you'll never get exactly what you see on the tests here. Right, we're going to look at the FM detector now. I'll turn the you'll see the waveform there, just slightly peaks out. It's not quite sinusoidal, is it, on the lower half? Now, I watched Richard's tune-up video on one of these, and I have seen that as a bit of a characteristic of this set, so I'm not going to worry too much. That's certainly a lot better than that one on his particular video. It may well be one of those capacitors. I could always probably go through and check and change a few of those. So that's good. So that's peaked. Anyway, let's go for the receive and see if we can improve things. As you've already seen, we've used the sweep generator to get the receiver on frequency, and now we'll just adjust 1, 2 and 3, these 3 cans there, to get our lowest reading on the cyanide meter. Okay, it's now doing 0.71 of a microvolt for 12 dB cyanide. That's pretty clean. We'll just turn that up a bit, and then we'll see how far we can listen down to. That's 0.2 of a microvolt, and we can still hear it. And it's gone by about 0.1, and squelch kicked in there. It's gone. That's 0.1 of a microvolt. So that's pretty decent. I've seen a lot worse than that before. I've seen a lot worse brand new sets than that before. So that's pretty good. That's 0.71 of a microvolt. So excellent. Okay, we've set 100 microvolt signal on the signal generator. I'm just going to adjust the meter there on the for receive of S9 signal. There we go. There's our S9 signal. Replace most of the capacitors that need replacing. I like to do those 2 power supply capacitors, so I've got a couple on order and we'll get those changed over. To do that, there's a screw in this side which holds this heatsink on, which needs undoing, and then it seems to me that the easiest way is that there's some captive nuts off the bottom of the back of these little brass pillars there, to remove those out, and then we should be able to pull it out of the board. Now I might need to take the side screws that are holding this bit out just to pry it away from the side to make that easier, but pulling that side plate out here, let's pull that back and do that screw on the side. Now it's useful to get one of these tools. It's inexpensive. You'll see these all over Amazon because they've got the flexible attachment on the end, and you can use that flexible attachment to get into the back of the nuts on there. Really good, so I recommend one of those. I'll show you the kit that I've got, that one there. You'll see those all over Amazon. Fantastic little tool set. Right, let's get these capacitors changed. They have arrived in the mail today. No expensive Nikki-Cons, I'm afraid. I got them from Electra Value on eBay, so I'm sure these are going to be better than the ones that come out. I shall certainly test the ones that are going in as well. We'll do that on the video. This capacitor has tested okay. It should be 1000 microfarad. It's 990 with an ESR of 0.12 of an ohm. I wonder if the one we're replacing is going to be better than that, but it's nonetheless not 40 years old, is it? There's the new one. The multimeter is much more accurate on the bigger capacitors than the little circuit tester there. So there we go. That's good. We'll just check the other one. There you go, and there's the 2200 microfarad capacitor. Lovely. We'll pop that one in as well. There you go. It should be 2200, and that's 2900 microfarad. So that one was going high. The big one was definitely on its way out. And a little blob of threadlock on there. Just, you know, in case anyone says I don't do a proper job. We do a proper job. Now, I don't want somebody in the future replacing these capacitors thinking they're 40 years old. So whenever I do a full recap, I always put a label somewhere in the radio letting people know that I've already done it, because, you know, I don't want the people to do it again. So that's the top tip if you do that yourself. It just, I know it doesn't, it doesn't cost you anything, but I'm just trying to save someone's time in the future. There we go, just in case there are any confusion. Right, it does power on. I've just tried it. We've got another, we've put these washers on here, the plastic washers, to repair the broken case. I've done my usual fix with that, and I've got to tap 2 holes in here and on the other side. So my M3 tap is broken, so I've just ordered some new ones. So we're going to tap those and pop some screws in, so this cover's nice and secure, and we can put the lids on it and give it a test with Mick. Right, we've got the new Aldited or Gorilla Glued washers in place. They're painted up black and they look good, and we've tapped the holes in the side there and got some countersunk M2 screws in there, and that's the same on both sides. So this is very secure. The original method to secure this little tab on the other side of that flat plate, really poor. Why they didn't opt to make this front plate with these extra bits on in the first place, I don't know. And this being German, I'm surprised at that, really. That was a pretty shoddy piece of German engineering, really. So we got some good old-fashioned English engineering on the case there, and there's a bit of tape. I'm going to take that off the side. Now the bottom cover's cleaned up really nice. The bottom speaker wasn't actually aligned correctly. I've done that now, so I could see somebody's sort of tried to round the screws a bit getting that done, but the bottom is cleaned up nice. The top of the case was a bit tired, so I have just dusted that. It's outside, it's a nice day, so it's outside drying in the sunshine, so I just gave it a little dusting of black paint just to bring that up a bit, just to freshen it up a bit. So okay, I mean that once the lid is on, we can do the test. So we're almost there, and I've given the front fascia a nice clean the knobs and everything, got in all the nooks and crannies as much as I could anyway. And I mean, I know some of you will say, well, goodness, it's a lot to do for one of these radios, you know, but don't get confused with the M40, which did have problems. They rectified most of the issues, particularly with the filter, the crystal filter there with this set. So these sets are not as bad as people think that they are. There was a super tuned version, I think the company was called RCH, that they actually rectified a lot of the problems with these boards that they originally had. And There's an article in one of the CB mags I was reading recently about that, where you could send your radio off and get them to actually super tune it. And that also applies to the LCL communicator as well. I think the that applied to that set as well. It got the same board in it. So yeah, okay, well yeah, the next shot hopefully is with the newly painted case on the top, and then we'll grab hold of Mick and give this a good test. Right, there's the print off of what everything does, and there's little notes at the bottom about setting up the get the reflection off there, setting up the RX and TX, and your reference of 10.24. Okay, so I mean, you should have picked up a lot of this off the video anyway, so I can get it all in one shot. To then you can perhaps pause that and then maybe print it off. I don't know if you can see those shiny lights. But one thing, the other thing I was to mention, it had really quiet audio. That capacitor there was completely dead. I think that's what was causing the quiet audio on this. But like I say, they were so poor, I just changed all of the capacitors, and it's really has helped. So okay, we'll try and get hold of Mick. Really pleased how this has turned out. Top case is looking really nice, and all we need to do now is to see if we can grab hold of Mick to do an over-the-air test. Right, we've got the DNT B40 FM. Hopefully it's all working all right.
Yeah, okay, Paul, Mick at this end, and you're coming over to me very well indeed.
Me very well indeed. Nice audio, nice and crisp, and I can't fault that at all actually, so yes, he's done another really good job there.
Ah, that's good to know, that's really good to know. Like I say, I've not seen many of the
sort of dry joints and poor receive, and I mean it still hasn't got the best squelch unfortunately, and there's no adjustment for that, but you know, I really like it in the fact that it's an all-in-one radio. You can just plug into the mains and go, and it and you don't see too many of these about in decent condition, and this one's in pretty good condition as you'll see on the video there, so I'm really pleased that you're saying it's working well, Rog.
Yeah, it certainly is, and refresh my memory please. Is that a base station or a normal CB rig?
Oh yeah, it's 100% a base station really. It's not a big rig though, it's like a longer version of a normal CB if you like, with the power supply just tacked on the back, so it's not like a big box radio like the Harvard base CBHQ and things like that, or a Uniden. It's like a small CB with a power supply at the back. But I've always had no problem with the DNTs. People tend to steer away from them, and they say that it stands for do not touch. But I've not had too many issues with them at all there, Rod.
No, okay, yeah, all
copied. It sounds very good though, I must admit. And yes, I could listen to, that's another one I could listen to all day long. So yeah, you've done an outstanding job, as I said earlier. So yeah, there's a little bit of white noise, but not a lot. That's probably just the atmospheric between me and you, and everything else is fine, Paul.
Yeah, Roger D, that's good to know. That's really good to know. I've got my usual local interference, which I have here. A little bit comes from CCTV.
And then I think there's somebody with like a mains transmitter a bit further down the road, but I just live with it. You know, it's on every single video, so that the viewers know that I suffer with sort of local interference here. Well, okay then, Mick, I won't hold you any longer with that, sir. You can stop recording at your end, and
we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, okay, Paul. All copied on that, and I have stopped recording now, so it does sound good though.